Hello and welcome to the Geeks Review. I'm Royce.
I'm Joshua.
We've talked a lot about horror movies on this show, haven't we? Considering I'm not a massive horror fan.
Neither, but they have their allure.
Yeah, we've spoken about everything from the seasonal tie-ins like Halloween and Friday the 13th, Saw, Scream, Candyman, even some foreign obscurities like Frankenstein's Army and White Tiger.
Yes.
We haven't really touched upon the master of horror, Stephen King. Last year,
Master of horror novelization-wise.
Yeah, we did talk about The Shining, Stanley Kubrick's,
Yes.
as well as the sequel Dr. Sleep, which starred Ewan McGregor and Rebecca Ferguson. But I don't think we really did it justice,
No.
So we decided for our final October episode to sort of tie into Halloween, which everyone seems to be doing now.
Yeah.
We would take a look back at another Stephen King classic, the 1990 miniseries, It. Starring most notably Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown. Directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, who was a friend of John Carpenter's. He famously created the Michael Myers mask. So he created that entire look. He directed Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. So
That's a rabbit hole we're going to be jumping down to of this.
Yes, but It tells the story of an entity which feeds upon fear and targets the children in this town of Derry, Maine. It starts in the 1960s, where the children encounter this entity, seemingly defeat it, and then return 30 years later as adults to finish it off.
Yes.
This was a pretty big deal. Back when it came out, it was kind of the definitive version. It's responsible for a lot of clown fears. Until, the reboot they did about 4 years ago.
With
Bill Skarsgård, I believe it was.
Skarsgård, the other Skarsgård.
Yeah, it's a bit of a confusing, similar names with that one. And that one's kind of regarded as being, a fantastic Stranger Things.
I did see it in the theaters, and yes, it does suffer from Stranger Things vibes, but it was pretty good. It doesn't smack you in the head with the 80s nostalgia like Stranger Things does, though.
Yeah, I have seen a bit of it, and it did feel a bit more as a sort of grounded and like it wasn't taking too much advantage of what it was doing. It's kind of interesting that it is kind of set around the same time that the book came out in 1986 and a few years out from when the present of the miniseries that we're talking about today.
Yes.
So, what do you think of this one?
This is the second time watching, first time watching all the way through, and my God, this is a slog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to get through it all. It's a 3-hour... It was a mini-series, but it goes for 3 hours. You can kind of see why they put it up in episodes.
Yeah, it was spread over 2 nights. I'm not actually sure if it was shown here in Australia. I tried to research, but I could not find any evidence of it airing. It was released on videotape back in 1991, where it was classified. Oh my God, the Australian classification website is horrible.
Yeah.
You type in a title name, Stephen King's It, and it goes... Here's 1,000 other titles with the words Stephen King and It in it. So that was fantastic. And
Bollocks.
yeah, scrolling through about 20, 30 pages trying to find it. So I don't know if it was actually shown on TV here, but this is the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I found it on DVD in shiploads.
Hey.
Gave it a watch.
I still had this from my old digital piracy age.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Buy things responsibly, kids. Unless you can't find them, then torrent them all you like. No, we're not advocating for that.
No, we're not advocating. No. This was just a carryover from many years ago when I was an avid...
criminal.
Yes. I've reformed.
That's good, because Jeffrey Rush will come over and tell you off for destroying Australia's film industry or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, it'll be a good chance, the opportunity to have a chat with him, but, no, I've done my community service. I've done my time.
Yes. Stephen King's It. It begins, this film, with the scene of... Well, it doesn't actually begin with the scene of Georgie's killing. It begins with the killing of a girl.
In present time, yeah.
Yeah, riding back home, seeing Incy Wincy Spider, which is kind of a tie-in to what later happens on in this series. And she stops as she's about to come in the house, and she sees something among the washing on the line, which is very Halloween. Michael Myers, that iconic shot. And she's taken away, or something's done to her we don't see, because obviously TV, 1990, I mean...
Yeah.
Twin Peaks was on TV at the time, but, we couldn't be too wild with what we were showing.
Oh, God, no.
And that kind of freaks out Mike. He's the sole remaining member of the Losers Club, which was a bunch of outcasts from 1960 who encountered Pennywise back in the day, and he contacts everyone else to try and get the band back together and confront Pennywise and destroy him once and for all.
Take it to the clown.
Bill, who's a writer, who's a very obvious Stephen King stand-in.
Yeah, an unsuccessful horror writer who's been brought in to help with a film.
Yes.
Probably based on one of his books.
Yes. Did you see the titles of some of his books? The Glowing.
Yeah.
There's a few other titles there as well. Beverly, who is played by Annette O'Toole, who is married to Michael McKean, who played Chuck in Better Call Saul. Long time married, that pair.
Good on them.
Yeah. As well as a few other, notable actors here and there.
With Seth Green being among the younger versions of the Losers Club.
Yeah.
The more stand out there.
Yeah, it's interesting with the new one, they took great pains to cast actors who kind of resembled the younger versions when it came to doing the older versions. With Seth Green, he just sticks out like a sore thumb.
Oh.
So it's kind of like, that's Seth Green, that's what he looks like in 30 years' time.
Having seen Seth Green in 30 years' time, I don't believe that. No. He's still a short, ultra-nerd person.
Yeah, he basically looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
People praise Keanu Reeves of not aging, and that guy.
And then you've got Seth Green. He only just got a little bit taller and then stopped.
Did he grow?
I think, yeah, he got taller.
A little.
Yeah.
I think the problem with the older cast is a lot of them look very similar to one another.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously you've gone and got, Mike and Bill kind of stand out, and of course Beverly. But then a few others just sort of look very similar to each other.
I couldn't tell Richie and Ben apart.
Yeah, to the point where I'm sort of like, which one was which?
Yeah.
Ben was the former fat kid, wasn't he?
Yes.
I watched this film twice, and that's the thing, it's sort of, you can only...
I finished watching it this morning. Yeah, no, I was thinking of the one with the asthma.
Yeah, was it Richie?
No. Richie was the Seth Green.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's tricky. The kids are quite distinct,
Yes.
The asthma kid is such a character, such a face on him. He's like this little worried old man.
Very distinct. But with the adults, you're just kind of like, what?
Yeah, I think he was a bit more, he's sort of a bit similarly like foppish in his appearance. But yeah, there's the other two are kind of like, you both look the same. Or similar enough.
Yeah.
For it to be confusion. It's not kind of like, this is Bill Hader. That's James McAvoy. This is this other guy.
No.
Who's distinctive enough.
I mean, that was a Hollywood movie. This was a miniseries.
It holds up in places.
It does. The effects are quite well, and then not so well.
The big spider.
Yes.
Maybe. There's a few things like the old lady who's kind of... It's quite shocking when she appears. Although that was kind of spoiled by the big teaser trailer they released for part 2 a few years ago.
Yeah.
When they did that. The new one with Jessica Chastain in that scene. Yeah, it is quite effective.
It is.
Especially Tim Curry himself.
Oh, Tim just takes it to a whole new level. Having watched the new movie and not the second part of it, and watching Tim Curry, yeah, Skarsgård's got the creep factor down, but Tim Curry's got that, I'm evil, but you're still going to lower down your defenses.
There's a problem I have with the new Pennywise, is that he's too obviously evil. And I think a lot of people look at these new films and go, it's new, must be good, must be better. And obviously Stranger Things, which is, pretty widely regarded as being good, isn't it? I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's all right.
So people go like, it must be better. He's meant to be scary, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, Tim Curry's Pennywise is kind of friendly looking. And
Yes.
then he's got that evil streak which comes out, I mean, if you know Tim Curry,
he hams it up, but you love him for it.
He's playing a clown. He's really appropriate here.
And that's the point. He's playing a clown. He's meant to be luring these kids down there and eating them.
It's really sort of ties into the whole Stranger Danger thing where it's this quite friendly representation, which is, really quite evil and horrific. And I could only imagine if they had been allowed to get away with some of the scariest stuff in this, how that might have come across. I remember there's the scene in the new one of him amongst the corn or amongst the weeds, and he's waving a child's arm.
Yeah, just picking his teeth. Oh.
He had a great face then for Pennywise, actually. That's a costume you could do in future.
Good.
he's quite devious and obviously created a lot of clown fears.
Yes.
Because he does kind of lure you in with that friendly facade and then reveal that evil streak, which I've said a few times now. But that's the kind of the thing, you know, clowns are widely perceived as being quite nice.
Friendly.
Yeah.
Good. And then clowns are an evil man.
I think the perception would have changed a few years prior had Tommy Lee Wallace gone ahead with the original mask he chose for Michael Myers, which was going to be a clown mask. It's actually the same mask which was worn by... It was based upon this famous clown, I believe his name was Emmett Kelly, and it was worn by Cesar Romero as the Joker in an episode
yes, I know the one you're talking
Batman.
about, yeah.
That mask was then reinterpreted as the bank robbery mask that Heath Ledger's Joker wears in The Dark Knight. So it's kind of funny to think that he could have almost been wearing a Michael Myers mask in a sense.
Could have.
But yeah, that would have been a very creepy clown. And of course, Tommy Lee Wallace with that John Carpenter connection. And I listened to the audio commentary where he talks quite fondly about John Carpenter and mentions like the fog. And there's a lot of fog scenes in this, quite effective ones.
Particularly in the sewers.
And POV shots with the clown going through the pipes, as well as like long tracking shots. There's the shot where we're introduced to Seth Green's character as an older man.
Yes.
Performing as a TV comic, and you start on this shot of the phone ringing backstage of this late night comedy show, and it goes through the backstage. It follows,
just tracks through in one single shot all the way to the main stage.
It's so impressive.
It is.
I mean, people talk about like the tracking shots of Halloween and that kind of the complexity of this shot on a TV budget on a TV show in 1990. It's super impressive.
It's just there was probably a few genuine scares that it got out of me.
Really?
Yeah. The old lady for one.
Oh yeah.
And the sudden, even though I knew it was going to happen, so there's a scene after the Losers Club reunite as adults, and Bev apparently goes to Ben and confesses her love, saying, "I knew you wrote the poem."
Yeah.
And then they're making out, they're going at it, and he's like, "What? Hang on, that's not Bev's outfit." And you can clearly see it's a clown suit, but it just, it still gets me every time. Just that turn reveal, "Kiss me, fat boy."
Yeah. It's really clever, simple scares like that. There's a similar one with Bev where she goes to her old family home and she sees Marsh is written on the, on the doorbell. And then when the old lady comes out and she looks back and it says Kirsch, and it's just that sort of, again, Michael Myers, he's there at the washing line and he's not. He's at the hedge and then he's not. It's that kind of cut back. It's just very simple, effective scares.
There are moments that are very goofy though as well.
Yeah.
And that is apparently a very common trait with Stephen King's stuff going into film.
Especially in the early days.
Yes. I think maybe the goofiest moment was when they were looking into the history of dairy and looking through all the different photos where Pennywise pops up. And they get to like this old, what looks to be like one of those recreation towns where everyone's in character and stuff. And he's just backflipping along, going up onto lampshades, and it's just, "I'll kill you all! I'm your worst dream! I'm everything you've ever seen come true!" Ah!
Yes. I did not know that was in it, and that was quite a nice surprise, I would say.
Great effect, but...
Yeah, it's one of those things where the director actually said, like, if we'd had, a couple $1,000 more, we could have made it look a bit better, sort of like it's more in the page and coming out of it.
Less like, this is a completely different shot.
Yeah. But it's effective, and it kind of, we said, like, it'd be interesting to see how they tackled a lot of stuff.
Classic use of some stop motion in places.
Yeah, the stop motion's quite effective. When it happens, it's like, that's there, but it works.
Absolutely.
Like when he gets sucked down the drain pipe at the end of part 1.
Or when he emerges in the showers.
Yeah, that was
quite well done.
That's, I think, the kind of iconic shot of him coming out of the floor in the bathroom, in the showers. As well as like when all the shower heads like sort of come out of the wall. It's like the pipes extend.
Slowly.
It's got like Freddy Krueger, part 2, Yeah, that kind of slant to it, and it's quite creepy that he just got. I could imagine kids who, or even some adults who would have seen that and just been like looking at the plug hole in the bath or the shower, just thinking something's going to come out.
One of the things that is done probably a little bit better in the newer film is the adults being in on it. Like, not seeing that what the kids are seeing, particularly with the blood scene with Beverly in the bathroom.
That's really turned up in a new one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, Beverly is in the bathroom and she hears a voice coming from the plug in the sink, and big red balloon comes out, pops, blood everywhere. And the new film takes the blood everywhere thing to a whole new degree.
Oh, yeah, puts it all over, and then, like, a small little bit of blood, and you can easily go, yeah, that's easy to miss that. You know, it's like, what, you spilled a bit of toothpaste or something? But all over the room, and the parents still chooses to ignore it. It's like, you still can't see all this blood.
Yeah, with the 1991, it's like her dad comes in and he's like, his hands are actually on the sink in the blood, and he like touches her face and there's like blood on his hands. Yeah, it's... I think by having Beverly sort of completely covered in the new one, it sort of lessens that moment. I think he touches her as well.
Yeah.
Like touches her
got
face.
it and like, nothing.
Yeah. So to his eyes, he's got like, there's no blood, there's no nothing, but she's just seeing this blood everywhere and he's like wiping it all over. But when she's already covered in blood, it sort of lessens the effect. And when it's just sink and a bit of a wall in her front, and then he goes and wipes it over her face. And you kind of get that callback later on where with Mrs. Kirsch and like the teacup and the fortune cookie scene.
Oh, the fortune cookie scene. That was a giggle.
Where,
well done, but that's a giggle.
Yeah. I like it when the restaurant owner, who was actually the real restaurant owner, comes in. She's like, is there a problem? And she's like looking between them all, like, I don't know where to look. Where do I look? Do I look between all of you? Do I look at one of you?
Yeah.
I can't see the stuff that's happening in front of me, because apparently they did that scene with the fortune cookies like cracking open to reveal these horrific sights to them. It was all done in camera, all done in shot with like minimal insert shots.
Wow.
So the eyeball coming out of the fortune cookie and the dead bird and the blood and all this, that stuff was all right in front of them, which adds to the scare.
It does. It's a bit like the chestburster and Alien, if you put it like that, then.
Yeah, it is actually.
Because they weren't told, other than John Hurt, that...
I remember an episode of Graham Norton about 10 years ago. Sandy Toksvig, current host of QI, she was on with Sigourney Weaver, and she'd never seen Alien. So they take her to the side and get her into like this this fake torso. You know, like she sat underneath the table, very similar to what they did with the John Hurt effect. She had no idea what was coming, and the chest burster comes out of it. Sigourney Weaver's like wetting herself laughing. Sandy Toksvig is just like, that's horrific. It. So it was shown over 2 nights. Again,
2 nights, apparently. Yeah.
I don't know if it was shown here.
Would have been 90-minute halves.
2 hours with commercials, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as was the way they did things. When did you first become aware of this?
Oh, sort of came as a recommendation at one point by someone. It's like, you know, Stephen King, because I really enjoyed the Kubrick Shining. And then I went out and ventured a bit more forth to see what there was. This was before that the new films came out, so I was still sort of stretching my legs into the King media. And then sort of just kind of dropped off from there when I saw how long it was, and only got about 90 minutes in and went, I'm done.
We were going to do a compare the pair.
Yes, but it's a bit hard for us when only one of us has a DVD player.
Well, yes, I mean, this is also a 3-hour thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 episodes, so you can kind of call it an intermission and go take a break, come back the next day, or watch it afterwards. You said it was a drag. I didn't find it too much of a drag, to be
I
honest.
felt that in places it did drag, like particularly with the adult scenes.
Yeah. I found the adult scenes more compelling, actually, for some weird reason.
No, I found the kids to be the stealers of the show.
They weren't in it as much as I thought, because the new one very clearly puts that divide between... Like, the first film is just focused on the kids, which is what everyone knows.
Yes.
And in the second film, you know, James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader, you know,
what
that's...
have you, all coming back.
With some flashbacks, you know, to the first one. Whereas this one is a lot more sort of intertwined, you know, you've gone and got scenes where Beverly and the kids go and clean up the blood in part 2 as opposed to, you know, part 1. And so it's sort of, it ties it all together, and you kind of see Beverly leaving her abusive husband and then find out how that ties into the rest of it.
Not everyone gets their happy ending in this one, unfortunately. There is a pretty... It's not brutal, but it is sort of a... takes you out a bit, sort of as well. With one of the losers club, rather than going back to Maine, taking his own life.
Yeah, he's just so terrified by the prospect, and it's kind of like they do become kids again. I mean,
just remembering it because, they've been away for so long. The only person who really kind of feels the presence of Pennywise would still be Mike because he lives in Derry.
And he's aged quite significantly in comparison to the others.
Yeah.
There's the quote by Beverly where she's like, "Why is it so mean?" Which sort of feels like quite a childish thing to say, but it's like they've sort of reverted back because of the trauma. Like the repressed trauma has come out, and that's what they talked about, Stephen King's stuff deals a lot with kids and with trauma, and the book and the new film sort of deals with themes we can't really discuss on the radio.
Sadly not, and the book is far, far worse than we could possibly imagine on film.
Yeah.
Because there is one scene, I cannot say what it is, but it is what I would consider to be, in this day and age, unfilmable.
Yeah. You can kind of, without showing it too much, but then it gets a bit weird, It's the thing about Stephen King is it's really about, like, kind of tying back to Halloween in a way. It's about theatre of the mind, It's about the implication of things scaring as opposed to the actual showing of things, which is why the first Halloween was so effective. That's sort of the idea which prompted that, zero blood, zero gore. And with Stephen King, he can kind of create terrifying things with prose, but then it's sort of trying to...
Also, it probably doesn't help that in his early career he had a massive coke problem.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I can imagine there might have been something with Bill's character similar to that, I'm sure.
Might have been.
Yeah.
But
Wouldn't
also probably,
surprise me.
for me, explains the Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, man, I have not seen that, but I know of it.
Yeah.
That's a wild one.
Or the Langoliers.
Yeah, there was quite a few TV movies of King, wasn't there, through the 90s?
Langoliers, one with aliens, like everyone got like super intelligent or something.
Yeah, and there's the one with Damian Lewis and Morgan Freeman, which we've spoken about before.
Yeah.
Don't go saying it because then I have to bleep it.
Oh, yes. That was Snowpiercer. No, Dreamcatcher.
That's the one, yeah.
Yes.
Snowpiercer was Korean. That was the one with Chris Evans and the director of Parasite. But yeah, I first became, I guess, acquainted with it. I didn't see it until, reviewing this. But a family friend back in 2006 who was like big into Star Trek, Star Wars, they had like Pet Sematary, like the novel on their thing. And I think they had a poster of it, and it was just, it was Stephen King's white thing, and there's Pennywise with like the claw coming around. And I'm sort of disappointed it doesn't quite live up to that, but I guess there's still some good scares here with it.
No, there's definitely some good stuff.
And I think, nowadays people are kind of wanting to remake Stephen King stuff. Like, I mean, we had the Pet Sematary remake.
That was apparently really good.
Made a few twists and turns because I think people are kind of now familiar with the story, so they went and twisted some things, so it's still a shock when things happen.
Things is a story that's being done to death by Stephen King. Well, it's been done in so many different medias, but that was one of King's works. I actually have it sitting on my bookshelf at home.
Oh, right, wow.
Yeah.
I recently saw Stand By Me, which is, it's not a horror film.
No, it's one of King's versions.
It kind of ties into the themes of, like, childhood innocence lost, and had a young Corey Feldman, and Richard Dreyfuss plays the main guy, the main kid as an older man. Dolores Claiborne and Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game being a more recent edition, it's directed by the same guy who did Dr. Sleep.
Ah, yes.
And those two stories, both Dolores Claiborne and Gerald's Game, are tied together because there's kind of that childhood trauma for both the protagonists, which ties back to this one event. It's both like happened at the same time, this lunar eclipse, or solar eclipse, I should say. Dolores Claiborne was actually written in response to Kathy Bates's performance in Misery. Stephen King saw that and go like, oh my God, I need to write this book for her, and then she went on to play that character. And yeah, I mean, Misery.
Good man.
Yeah, there's so much stuff.
So he had a very prolific. Though he does have a little bit of writing advice for aspiring writers: 2,000 words a day minimum.
Yeah, that's a good thing to stick by if you're trying to write. Stick to at least 2,000 words. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Just get it out there.
Words.
I mean, that's also not mentioning, Stephen King's other works like The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
But that's a story for another time.
Those are stories and films for another day.
Stephen King's It was the 3-hour-long miniseries from 1990, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace and starring Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown. I don't think it's available anywhere.
No, you'd have to do a lot of digging, unless you can find it in a $5 bin.
Yeah, I got it for $4 from Shiploads.
So there you go.
If you can luck out and find it there. As I was watching that DVD and listening to it, I mean, it came out in the early 2000s, before they introduced the color-coded, rating system. I think this would have been a treat,
Yeah.
for any King fan to have. Anyway, that about wraps up the show. I'd like to end on this little quote here from director Tommy Lee Wallace, taken from the director's commentary, talking about why people love horror movies. I'm Royce.
And I'm Joshua.
And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
It's a funny thing about horror movies in general. People ask over and over again, what is the appeal? Why does this genre not only survive, but thrive? It's not even as though there's a fad at work. It just seems to be there in the corner perennially, waiting seasonally for yet another. And it doesn't even have to be a big budget fancy movie. As long as it succeeds in scaring the audience, it has a chance for success throughout the years. And the answer, I think, is very simple. People love to be scared when they're in control. No one loves to really be thrust into a dark alley in the middle of a big city late at night and have to walk 2 blocks to their car. That's scary. That's real. Nobody wants to be scared in that fashion. But in a theater, we're allowed to let go and believe for that moment. And because we're in control, because we're in the theater, it's fun. It's as much fun as an amusement park. That's as old as sitting around a campfire.